Hello and welcome to today's presentation. Today we're going to take a look at the Google Geocode API and show how the functionality of that API can be accessed and consumed from Nonstop using LightWave Client. LightWave Client together with LightWave Server make up the LightWave suite of products on the Nonstop, and they provide REST capabilities for Nonstop applications. LightWave Server, which acts as a server-side middleware, allows Nonstop applications and functions to be exposed as REST services. LightWave Client allows Nonstop applications to consume and interact with REST services on other platforms from the Nonstop. But first, a quick introduction of the Google Geocode service. So the Geocode service is used by Google Maps, and those of us that have used Google Maps will have interacted with this service as a result. It allows addresses to be verified, and missing data from those addresses is provided back as part of the response. It's available as a public REST API, and therefore, like all REST services, can be consumed from the Nonstop using a LightWave client. So in today's presentation, we are going to explain how LightWave Client is installed and how the demo to access the Google Geocode API is put in place, and we'll see the end result as well. So here's a high-level view of the entire Geocode demo. On the left-hand side, you can see our HP Nonstop server. We are going to be looking at a demo program called Geocode. We're going to get that installed. And in this demo, the Geocode command line program sends an IPM to LightWave Client, which is also running on the Nonstop. LightWave Client, we are going to configure to be able to send and receive JSON messages that correspond to that required by the Google Geocode API. So a request will be sent over containing some address information. The Geocode API will validate that address and return the complete address back as a JSON response to LightWave Client. LightWave Client will parse that response and return the relevant data from it in an IPM back to Geocode that we will see displayed on our tackle screen. So here's how we get that demo set up. The first thing we need to do is download our LightWave Client software. So if we visit the NuWave Software Download Center, we can see all of the various options for the LightWave software that we can download. We'll want to download the latest GA release 1.10. In addition to the software, we need a license. So you can go to the Trial License Center, trial.nuwavetech.com, and request a license from here. This is very easy. You just provide your system number and you'll receive a trial license immediately. Once you have both of those components, they need to be transferred to your Nonstop server. And on your Nonstop server, you need to unpack the pack file that the LightWave Client software came in and place the license file in the same subvolume as LightWave Client. So here I have my LightWave Client subvolume with everything installed, including the license, which you can see there. So I've unpacked my LightWave Client software, transferred the license, and I'm ready to go as far as LightWave Client goes. So I now need to configure LightWave Client for my environment. The first thing I need to do there is edit the startup file to make a couple of minor changes. So I'm going to open it in T-Edit, and in fact I've already made those changes, but you'll see here you'll need to set the process to a PPD that is relevant to your environment, and you'll also need to set your TCP/IP port for the console. Here it is there. Set the console port to a port that is free and available on your Nonstop server. So in this case, I've set the port to be 19012. So we can exit from our startup file. And we can now run the startup file to start our LightWave Client console process. And you can see now that the console is running and it's listening on port 19012. Now we need to go to the LightWave Client console and start to configure the APIs that we're looking to set up. So we'll head over to our browser. We will put in the IP address and port. So this is the IP address corresponding to the TCP/IP process on the nonstop and port 19012 as we've just configured. And we are now into our console. Over here on the left-hand side, we can see APIs. So we select that and we want to add a new API. So we're going to create an API. We're going to call it Google Geocode, and it's going to have the Google Geocode API as a description. We've created the API. Now we need to set up the operations, which is the paths and methods that correspond to the services that will be available through this API. So let's go ahead and add a new path. And this path we're going to call maps/API/geocode/JSON. Now we need to add some methods for that path. So we click on plus and we set up our first method. This is going to be an HTTP GET. The alias for this one is going to be get geocode, and the description will be it's a latitude longitude lookup. We need to configure the request and response. So the request needs some data mapping. Let's add some data mapping for that. The target type is going to be a URI query parameter. The parameter name is address. It's going to be coming from the IPM, which is sent to LightWave Client, and its maximum length needs to be a little bit bigger, maybe 256, so we'll add that. Then we're going to add another data mapping. This is also a query parameter. This is the key. The Google Geocode API requires an API key, and so we need to provide that. This one doesn't come from an IPM, it's actually going to come from a parameter, which we're going to configure. And that parameter name is going to be Google API key. Okay, and then we need to set up our response for the message. We're going to set up a response for an HTTP status of 200, which indicates success. And now we need to retrieve a sampled JSON message that we can get the JSON response from. So let's visit that website. Here we go. And this is the Google Geocode API Developers Guide. And if we scroll down, we can see this is the sample JSON response. So we can copy that data, go back to our console, and we're setting up our 200 success response. So we need to add new data mapping. Oops, we've already done that. This is the HTTP response body. Here we want to add by example. So we're going to be prompted for the example data. And here we can paste the data. I just did a Control V that we'd copied from the Google developer documentation. everything else there is correct. We can click on OK and now save. Now we've saved that entire API, as you can see. There's one or two minor changes we need to make here. So we're going to edit the API schema. These fields need to be made slightly longer than the default. And this occurs needs to be slightly longer as well. We change those. And now we need to export that API definition to the nonstop so we have access to it from our LightWave client environment. So we click on Export API Definition. You can see we can save directly to an Nscribe file. And we're going to call it Geo API. And that API definition has now been saved to my nonstop. So we've got the LightWave client software installed on the nonstop. It's running, the console's running, and we've now created the Google Geocode API within the LightWave client configuration and exported the API definition to the nonstop. The next thing we need to do is obtain a copy of the Geocode nonstop demo application, which is available on the NuWave GitHub website. So we have that here. And you'll need to download the pack file and then follow the instructions in the README file. So we are going to do that now. So once we've downloaded the pack file to the nonstop, we need to unpack it, and then we need to build the application. We provide a couple of macros to do that for you, create the DDLs and then build the application. You can see those here. So in my subvolume here, I've already unpacked the file that I downloaded. So now I need to run the load DDL command to create the DDL dictionary. That's done. And then I need to run the build macro, which is going to compile the C version and the COBOL version of the Geocode demo program. And you can see that they've compiled now. And there's a couple of minor configuration changes that need to be made. So we're going to edit our set env macro, and we're going to set our pathmon, which I've already done, to a name that works for your environment. The server class should be geocoding API. You need to specify the subvolume where you've installed LightWave Client. And then this is the API key that I mentioned earlier that you'll need to obtain from the Google Geocode developer environment. You can paste that in here. So you make those couple of changes to your set env macro, exit from there. Then we run that macro to set those parameters, and then we run our start pathway program, which is going to start that pathmon that we just specified. So now the APGeo pathmon is running, and we've got the server Geocode API running as well. So let's try running that new program that we've just built. So we'll enter an address. And really that was only a partial address. It happens to be the NuWave offices. And you can see with that partial address, the Google Geocode API has been able to look up the complete address and return all of the information back to us. Let's try another address, something a little closer to my home. Again, a partial address. And with just that little snippet, really, just the name of the place, we're able to get a complete set of address data back from the Geocode API. Quite a valuable feature for applications that need address information. So there you have it. With those couple of steps, we have installed LightWave Client, configured it using the LightWave console. We have downloaded and built and installed and configured the Geocode program, and we have run it to show how you can access the Google Geocode REST API from your nonstop quickly and easily with a minimum of fuss. I hope you found today's presentation worthwhile. If you need any more information, you can follow up on the links that are on the screen, and you can contact me as well if you need any further information. Thank you so much for your time.